You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Craft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Craft.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Gail Craft from the Empowering Process podcast. And I have with me someone that you're really going to love to listen to and get to know. And this is Farah Ismail. Farah is a certified facilitator and coach. She's a speaker, an author, and she's the founder of Interact Consulting with over 25 years of experience in the field of leadership and cross-cultural experiences. She partners with leaders and entrepreneurs who find themselves frustrated, unfulfilled, despite outward signs of success. Can we relate to that? I know I can. When they work with her, they reimagine their business, crafting a lucrative, purpose-driven enterprise that drives or delivers more clarity, confidence, connection, and meaning. And today she's joining us to talk about facing yourself is the biggest fear. Welcome, Farah.
Thank you, Gail. I'm really excited to be on your podcast
It's
and speaking about something that's so important.
very important. So very important. So before we recorded, we chit-chatted a little bit about our stories. And, you know, we all have similar stories. And so I'm going to lead in with a little bit of mine and then ask you to take it away. So, I was raised, as a child and as a young adult, to believe it was my role to keep the balance, to keep the peace, right? I was responsible for the happiness of family, the happiness of work. And so that meant that I would show up for others. So I would be whatever it is they wanted me to be at work. I would be whatever they wanted me to be with my friends. I would be whatever they wanted to be in my relationships, in my marriages, and in any of my relationships. And as a result, I kind of lost who I was. And I remember thinking at one point, looking at myself and thinking, if they really knew who I was, if they really knew what I thought, they wouldn't like me. And it was at that point that I realized that I wasn't showing up as me and that maybe I didn't like who I was. And so the journey began for me, at least at that point, of really getting to know me. Hello. Hi, Gail. Nice to meet you. Right. And getting to actually love me. And I say warts and all, right? The good and the bad and the ugly, right? Right. Because it's all of me, right? And so you have a similar story, and I would love you to share some of those details with us, if you will.
Thank you, Gail, for being so vulnerable right at the start of this podcast. And I think that's what connected us in the first place.
Right.
We speak from our heart, and we want to go to places that are difficult to go to.
Right.
So first of all, I want to acknowledge what you said, because to show up for others is really tough all the time. And I remember this incident in my life as well, when for a long time in my one part of my life, when I was not showing up as myself as well. So here I was in this relationship that really looked like I was trying very hard, and I felt, because I was expected to make it work, that I continued to believe that I was trying to be like a martyr, staying in it for a long time, and I didn't recognize myself doing that when I look back now. And staying in a relationship like that can really bring you down and make you feel like you're not in touch with who you are at all. And so I lost myself along the way, and then I found this moment in my life when I suddenly looked at myself and I said, this is not it. This is not who I am. And that's when I made this decision to take a completely courageous step in my life. And that's when I changed everything. But it was really difficult. I was afraid. And all this time I was, telling myself that, oh, I'm really strong and I'm this superwoman, and I'm this single mother and I'm going to really take everything. So I had all this strong armor, and I was walking around like that, and it was heavy. And I realized at one point that that is not serving me, because I was just not in touch with who I truly was, and I was trying to be someone else. And I think it was all those conversations I had with myself and shifting some narratives of what I believed in that changed a lot of who I am today. So I'd love us to get to those places sometime in our conversation.
Well, it's interesting because it's, first of all, it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight, right? And realizing that, you not only, or at least for me, I didn't even not only not like myself, but I didn't trust myself. And I was kind of afraid of the anger that I was suppressing, because when you ignore who you are, when you ignore your desires, your little person inside who's screaming to come out gets a little angry, right? I like a Tasmanian devil, right? This little thing is really starting to churn because it's trying to come out, right? And I was feeling all of those emotions and really afraid of what would happen if what would happen to me and what would happen to my relationships if I let that devil out, right? And at first, when I started doing this, I dropped all my filters, and so I started to say what was on my mind. And and sometimes not with any tact, and so that blew up, of course, in my face. And so the next step was, okay, so how do I honor how I feel and what I believe to be true in the moment in a way that does not have a negative reaction, right, from someone else. And so there are two things that I learned, and I don't know if you can relate to any of this. Number one, I can say what I have to say with the intention of communicating and with the intention of love, and therefore the words will be soft, right? They won't be harsh. So I can do that. And number two, I don't own your response. If I'm coming from love, then if your response is that of anger or hurt and frustration, that's not mine to own. If my intention is to hurt you, that's a whole different thing. I own that. Right? But if my intention is just simply to let you know my perspective, then you own the reaction. Those are hard lessons to really embrace and bring into your life. What were some of the things that you did, some of the transitions that you went through?
So they're very different from what you have experienced. So, when you were talking about yourself, I was trying to put myself back in that time when, and this whole journey. And for me, it's been valuing my privacy. It's been not keeping it. So I held it inside of me. And there was this whole thing of, very, very acutely aware of, this is my journey and I will deal with it alone. So I could not involve anyone else. So while I did that, I was also sometimes suppressing a lot of these feelings, and I became feelingless. Like I would be able to hit the delete button very easily. I would say, oh, I've deleted this whole years of my life. Just press the delete. So it was so easy for me to say that. I just realized that you can't do it. You just can't delete it, because you need to go through it. You have to go through the messy middle. You have to feel it. You have to acknowledge it. And I think when I was able to do that, then it changed. It's about how I communicate, you know, things about me now very, very openly. But I wasn't able to do that before. And I think
Mm.
figuring that out, that struggle I had of, this is my story to own, and it's going to lie buried inside of me, and what it created inside of me. There was all these feelings of how I was perceiving these things, and it was all really taking me into spaces that weren't empowering me at all. And I think when I was able to let go of that, and of course, there's another thing about me is, and it's a personality thing, which I'm really blessed with, that I'm always forward looking. So for me, it's all about looking ahead. So I might have the biggest roller coasters in my life, and I'm going through tough periods, but it's hard for me to stay in the past. So what served me through all this was that ability to have this very different and perspective to my world and my reality, and I have this whole thing of hope. And I think that's what I bring to everything that I do. Always looking ahead. I believe that it's a beautiful journey that I'm walking, and it's up to me, the future that I create and I enter into. So there was this combination of these two things that were probably, taking me into spaces that helped me to uncover new parts of me. And I guess that's what made me start to uncover all these aspects of, resilience and courage that helped me walk that path. And today, that's what I believe is one of my biggest strengths, which is the courage to take action despite of the fear, and also to believe that the future is something that I create and I walk into. And so when I'm so acutely aware of what I want and not focus on what I don't want, I'm able to just drop the things that I don't need. And lately, that's what I've been doing. This is not serving me. Let me just put down my backpack. I don't need these things. Let me just move on.
So
So
let me just leave you right here. So there are two things that you talked about. One is doing it alone, and I'll be honest, I did none of this alone. I have had coaches, mentors, and guides for almost 15 years now. There's not been a time in the year that I haven't had someone to turn to lean on, to advise me, because I felt there was so much that I had to face, that I wanted to go through it and go through it with guidance. And so I always have had someone to, I say, hold my hand as I took the journey. And the other is feelings. And I think that you mentioned, right? Feelings is what, at least for me, I was afraid of. I was afraid to face the anger, afraid to face the shame and the sadness, right, that I was burying, right? Because when you're serving someone else, because that's what it was, servitude. I was living a life of servitude. When you're serving someone else, you're burying who you are, and so you become ashamed of who you are, right? Because you're ashamed that you're angry that you're serving someone, because you're supposed to be serving someone. You're supposed to be the good wife. You're supposed to be the good employee. You're supposed to be the good friend, right? And you want to tell them what to do and where to go, and you're ashamed of that, right? And so facing that, and realizing that it's okay to feel those feelings because they're valid. That's where the fear was for me, to face those things that I was burying, right?
yeah. And Gail, when you talked about, I couldn't do it alone as well. So, but there was a big part of my life when I think if I look back, and there's one thing I would say that I would change, it is that period of time when I felt like I have to carry these mountains on my shoulders,
Right.
and while there was all this support, I have this incredible family, and I had all this support, but it was my journey to, and I think I had to go through that.
Right.
But if I had to do it differently, I would take support earlier. Of course, things changed after that. I've had mentors and coaches as well after that. And I think that's what has really changed everything for me. And the other thing you spoke about, which I do want to talk a little bit more on, is about feelings. And so I think about this relationship that I had, and it was so interesting because I had this view that such a big thing for me. Ending a marriage was like this big loss in my head. And my whole perception was tainted by this view that it's a loss. But the moment I realized that it was not a loss, it was something that was going to help me rewrite my life story, is when I was able to deal with it, you know. But that moment of courage is what helped me make that decision. And I believe that throughout, of course, there were a lot of times in my life I was trying to prove to myself that I didn't feel all these emotions. It was hard to start everything from scratch and to build everything from bottom up. But I think what really helped me was doing some work which was life changing for me, and I wrote about that recently. It was a book that I was lucky to be exposed to. It was a book by Dr. Brené Brown, and it was Dare to Lead. And while I was looking at that book to create a transformational leadership program for the women that I wanted to serve, I actually spent about 8 to 9 months living that work. And I think you have to face every emotion, every vulnerability when you're doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's when I was able to acknowledge these emotions that I was feeling. And I had fears. I was weak at times. And so I was able to acknowledge that to myself. And I think when I was able to do that is when I was able to speak about it and do the kind of work that I do.
And that's you've said it a couple of times, and it really is. It's a phrase that resonates with me and a phrase that I hate at the same time, and it's called do the work. And it resonates with me because I have had clients who expected me to do the heavy lifting for them, and I'm like, no. No, you don't change if I do the work, and I do the work on me, and it's none of your business what that is, right? You need to do your work if you want to change. And so there's that there's a positive thing about doing the work for yourself. And then the part that I hate about it is that when I hear it, it almost sounds too masculine for me, right? It's like, go do the work, right? Suck it up and do the work. And that's not what we mean at all. It's not at all. And yes, it's painful. And yes, it's hard. And our ego doesn't want us to do anything painful and hard. And so the work is fighting your ego to face yourself. That's the work, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's what we're trying to. So I think when I say it's do the work is just be honest.
Yes.
Where you are. And I think it all starts from there.
Yeah.
And the moment you are honest with your reality, then only then can you actually visualize where you want to go. And I think that's the first step for me when I'm working with my clients or whoever I'm mentoring. I think the key is looking for clients who want to dream bigger, who are ready to choose courage over comfort. Playing it safe keeps them absolutely away from living that life that they desire. So I think when they know that's where they want to go is when they are willing to walk the path and enjoy the journey. It's not, and you can't do this in a hurry. You can't turn and change your narrative in a hurry. It requires a lot of introspection. And it's a fun process. I love that journey I'm on. In fact, I've been doing something very interesting over the last week. I've been writing these small stories of my life. Okay, so it's any small thing, but it's the power of, how I've been able to look at things differently. Small things that change the perspective to who I want to be and how I want to disrupt myself. And so a lot of words that we use sometimes, like as you said, do the work or even disrupt yourself, are really, words that might not relate. But I think for me personally, those are things that push me forward. And they are the things that I tell myself and they motivate me. So it might be different words for different people. But for me, this year, it's all about falling in love with myself, falling in love with the lifestyle I want to lead, falling in love with disruption, and going to places that I've never been before. So unless I do be uncomfortable, how am I going to really enjoy this? Just stretching a little bit more. So I think that's what I enjoy in my life, and everything I've done, Gail. If I look back, I've always stepped a little ahead, so I love that, challenge that I get.
Just a little bit, just a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Not enough that it is overwhelming and then you don't want to take the next step. It's enough that it was like juicy and delicious and fun, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I wrote down while you were talking is, like falling in love with yourself. When we go through this journey of uncovering the truth about who we are, sometimes we're tempted to get angry, feel ashamed, oh, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe oh my gosh, this behavior and that behavior. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about looking at the circumstances, at the choices that you made, and understand that those were the choices that you had available to you at the time because of your belief system. And you're now looking at it from a different belief system. And so honor the fact that given the same circumstances today, you would make a different choice. And that's what we're saying, right? You cannot change the past, but you can change how you look at the past and change how you make choices in the future.
I love that. I love that. I love this thing about, everything is a choice.
Right.
And this thought about, many people also talk about, you need to take action. You need to take that first step. And, when I was thinking about when did I take that first step? And there was one step before that. I had to make a decision in my head that I'm going to do it. So it all starts with a decision.
Right.
So any choice that I'm choosing, it starts with a decision. And of course, from there, if I am afraid to take that, then I'm going to stay where I am. And that comfort zone is beautiful. It will just make
Oh
you
my
feel,
God, because it's called a comfort zone for a reason.
yeah, you can stay there for a long time. And I think for me, it's about making those decisions and also helping others make those decisions, because you can continue dreaming and you can continue aspiring, but unless you make that decision and then kick your butt and
Right.
just take that one tiny step, and fear is going to be there along with you, so take it along with you. It's okay. Yeah, it's there. But I think it's about facing who you're becoming, in this journey. And I think it's all about, many times a lot of my clients are talking about, but how do I get there? Well, the how becomes so important.
And it's not important.
And now when I think back about how did I get here from where I was, I don't think I had that clarity. I did not have those this step one, step two, step three very clearly defined. I did have a vision, a very clear vision of what I want in my life. And so having that and really holding that can really make me walk towards that. And of course, there could be different ways to get there, but I think it's about not the how. It's about why is it important to me, and
Why?
also about who do I want to become. So there's this really interesting question that I answered recently. It's about what's the new story you're telling yourself. So everything we're telling ourselves stories. So I can choose the story. So it's a choice. I can choose the story for 2022. It's so empowering because I can change it. And but I need to write it.
You
I
need
need
to
to
write it.
I need
And
to write it.
so I call my favorite word this year, though it's not the word I'm living by, but it's one that has popped up, is everything is an experiment.
Mm,
And so if you think of life as an experiment, right? So I'll use my podcasting as an example. So I decided, I was going to do this podcasting, and I did my why. Why am I doing this? Right?
mm,
Because that tells me who I'm going to invite on and the conversations we're going to have, right? So I had my why, and I thought, well, I have no idea what this experience is going to be like. I have some idea. So in 6 months, I'm going to look back and decide whether I'm going to continue. So in 6 months, I looked back and I thought, well, here's what I liked. Here's what I didn't like. Here's what I'm going to change. I'm going to continue, but I'm going to continue differently. And I give myself permission to look at it again next October and decide whether I'm going to continue or not, because it's an experiment. And if I continue, I can change how I continue, or I can stop. It doesn't really matter. It's all up to me because it's an experiment.
absolutely.
Yes, and so life is an experiment. When we talk about that, the how, I think one of the things that we're facing, at least I face today with my clients, is they're looking for the magic pill. They're
Mm,
looking for the quick answer. And as you mentioned, the law of gestation says it takes time. You have to nurture the process. You have to watch the roots grow first, and then the little stub poke through, right? And then maybe a leaf poke out and the other leaf poke, right? It takes time and nurturing for you to excavate yourself and really get to know who you are, right? And so and there is no goal. That's the thing, right? Your change is an infinite process.
mm,
If you ask me, so Gail, you have decided that you are going to transform. At the end of this transformation, what does that look like? Because I will ask my clients, well, what does that look like? So that they get clarity as to where they're going. And for me, what that looks like is that I am at another level of transformation,
yeah,
which means I'm always changing because I have learned something. And so now I'm something new, and I know that there's something more for me to learn.
and I think I believe that as well. Change is something that we have have to deal with. There's so much change we've experienced every day, and I think um, I don't know if you can hear me, but my
I
network is
can.
not there.
I can.
Yeah, and I think we've learned tremendously over the last few years. And what I love is that we have, in many ways, embraced this change really well. The people I work with, the people I talk to, my network, I find that we're we're so adaptable. It's just that being in touch with that resilient self of ours is key for us to believe that I can in the moment, I can actually deal with it or I can bounce forward, but I have those inner strengths. And I think for me, one of the things that I think I bring to my work is this ability to help people to identify, be in touch with their strengths. So uh, one of my topmost strengths is a maximizer in the Gallup Strength Finder. And I love when it describes it that I'm like a pearl diver and I go and find the pearls and I will dig and bring it out. So when I read it and I felt, oh my God, that's how I look at the world. That's how I'm kind to myself. That's how I'm compassionate in tough times because I believe that I have that inner reservoir. How do you pronounce it?
Reservoir is perfect.
Reservoir inside of me that I can tap into. But what I find mostly in tough times is we lose sight of it. And we're constantly looking at what are the things that limit us. And I think that's a space that I want us to try to, be a little more kind to ourselves and find those inner gems that we have. We all are unique and we have such beautiful things that has helped us to reach where we are. So when I think about what you said, I believe that um, it's an experience of going through success, going through tough times, and it's really about the lessons we learn from everything. So I find that all the regrets that I've had, I've been reading a lot about this beautiful book on regrets, and I think that regrets are great opportunities for us to change things in the future, and they're not something to cry on. It's can I bring forth?
It's a lesson. It's an opportunity for a lesson, right?
Mhm.
I do want to touch on something slightly that's a little off center from this, and that is, we're talking a lot about self, right?
Yeah.
But we are also interconnected. We are energetically connected to everything in the universe. We're connected to the trees, we're connected to the bugs, we're connected to each other, right? Because we're just energy at a certain density. Sorry, guys, but that's all we are, is energy that is self-aware.
Yeah.
With that in mind, as you become, for me, again, I can only talk about me, right? As I become more sure of who I am, I call it knowing, just more knowing, and less judgmental. I see the pain in others more, right? Because I'm clearer, I see you clearer, right? Does that make sense? And one of my missions in life is to be part of elevating the world, which means I'm part of healing the world. So when I see someone in pain, I know that they're hiding from themselves, right? And when I say that, we all have traumas and wounds from our past. It doesn't matter how great your upbringing was. There are traumas and wounds that we hang on to in our past. And so find someone who will help you heal the wound and learn from the trauma, right? Because otherwise, what happens is, as you bury, like I told you, I was the Tasmanian devil, right? As you bury that trauma, if you, in this more than one in our lives, so you bury those pains and you get angry, the anger can overwhelm you. I know I was an angry person when I was young. I was very angry at 18, very angry at 21, really pissed off at 24, right? It really wasn't until I started taking responsibility at 25, quite frankly, of my life and taking responsibility for me, my family, and where I was going, and being accountable for my actions. And it took a long time, this accountability, to become clear. Until that happened, the anger just festered and grew, right? And so that angry person, I mean, I tell people, if you knew me then, you absolutely would not like me because I didn't like me, right? But I was in the world of blame. And so I see that in other people because I was there, right? And because I'm so clear now as to who I am, it screams to me. And so I ask people that do what we do, when you see the pain, offer the healing. You can't make the healing happen, but offer the healing.
Mhm.
And I do that frequently. I'm here if you want to talk. You don't have to go alone. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook. Send me a message. Send me an email. Send me a text. There are 1,000 ways you can get in touch with me. Use one of them, and
That's beautiful.
I'll call you back. Right?
That's beautiful because it speaks to me about who you've become. I mean, you've talked about your entire the emotions that you went through, and now you are willing to giving yourself permission to help others to look inside and heal themselves. So because you've done that for yourself, I love what you're saying, and I just want to add that hiding is something that we all do, and it's hard. It hurts when you watch someone who is not willing to receive.
Right.
So it's easy to heal someone who is willing to receive, who has their hands open, or they have their mind open. Then it's easy for you to approach and share what you have. I find that the struggle I have is when someone is closed and is going through the pain and will probably shut you off, even if you're there to support them. But what I like what you're saying is help anyway. Give that support, share that you're
Right.
there for them.
Right. And that's all you can do. You don't offer
That's
healing because they're not ready, but let them know when they are ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think recently, I went through my own little really tough situation in November, when last year was tough. I lost my amazing dad, and it was so tough because this whole life was in front of me, and I was thinking about all the ways that I could have spent more time with him, or just helped him a little bit more. And after he passed, I had a couple of months of really dealing with my grief, and I had some amazing resources, and I'm so grateful for the people who even with small offerings were able to really help me deal with my grief and celebrate the fact that if I'm grieving, it is unprocessed love for this person. And so when I heard that, and I said, it's okay if I'm going through this crying bout, or I'm feeling hurt about not being able to have changed something about his the way he passed, etc. So I feel that a lot of people help you, and I'm so glad that I had I was open. I was open to listen, and I feel that if there are so many people ready to help you, I think it's important to pay it forward. So a lot of things that I want to do as well is pay it forward. And one of the things that last week I was in London, and there was this amazing 1-minute moment when the Kate and William actually came on all the radio stations in the UK, 500 UK. They interrupted with a 1-minute, just a 1-minute message, and that message hit home. And it was about how can you lift the lonely. Just be there, just call, just knock on their door. And it was, it touched me so much, because I was actually, this has been at the back of my mind since November, and I'm thinking about how can I bring this a part of me, how can I offer it in a way that I'm able to help others as well. And these are different things. People are going through stress, trauma, and you said they're trying to heal from different situations, and I felt that
absolutely
people are lonely as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things that it's a beautiful space to be in when you're when you're open, when you're aware of what you want to give back, because you've got so much. And I think that's the space I'm in right now.
Absolutely. I have an exercise for you you're going to love. This was the first ever transformational training that I went through. And it was in the city where, right. And at the end, that Sunday morning, our graduation exercise was to go out into the city and find a stranger who was alone and offer to take them to breakfast.
Oh my God.
It was, first of all, what are you trying to sell me? Nothing. I just want to share breakfast with you. Right. Yeah. And once they got over that, who are you? What are you trying to do to me? We had some amazing conversations to share about what was going on in their life and why on a Sunday morning they were alone in the city.
Well,
Yeah.
and I just have a plan to meet somebody for a Sunday morning walk, and I might, I will include this, and I'll let you know about it.
Okay.
Grateful I did.
Isn't
Thank
it
you.
awesome? Isn't that
I love it.
amazing?
These are small, these are small things that can lift anybody up, and it lifts you up as well. So,
Well, absolutely. And what I started doing from that, because I worked for a long time in the city, you know, and you have bums come up to you, you know, do you have a dime? And I would say, you can have my sandwich, or I'll take you to lunch, but not give you money, right? And usually the answer was no. Sometimes the answer was yes, and I would take them to lunch, right?
yeah.
Right. So, you know, I'll feed you, I'll be happy to feed you, but I'm not buying the booze, right? Or the
Mhm.
drugs or whatever it is that puts you here, but I would be happy to keep you healthy, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I love
So,
that.
you know, with that, yes, the biggest fear is really ourselves facing those demons, the Tasmanian devil, right? And reaching out to family, friends, coaches, people that can lift you up. And so, Farah, I want you to let folks know where they can reach you. You've got an amazing website, and you have a free offering, and I will actually put the links in the commentaries. How can people get in touch with you if they want to know more?
Before I get there, I want to say that I really loved just having this conversation with you, because we went to spaces that were
You
so
never know.
important to both of us, you know, from
Yeah.
choices to beliefs to healing to our fears and who we are and hiding. And just knowing that, um, you know, life is a journey, and that's where
Yeah.
we are on. And if we are there to lift one other person up, I mean, and also face our fears, I think it's going to be an exciting experiment. So I really love that. Thank you. Thank you, Gail. I knew that I'm going to have a very empowering conversation with you.
I knew it was going to be great.
And that exercise, oh, I'm going to have Sunday is going to be something I'm going to look forward to. Of course, I'm happy to connect with anyone. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. And feel free to send me a message. And if you want to just talk, set up a call with me, send me a message on LinkedIn. And yes, there are a couple of books that I would like to offer if anybody wants to go to my website and download it. One is the book I wrote. I wrote it in the pandemic, and it's very special. It's a very short book. You'll finish it in 15 minutes. It has some very powerful exercises that will empower you,
Mhm.
but it is my 5 secrets
Right.
to dare to be me. And of course, you'll see that they reflect my personality and how I've lived my life. So I'd love you to pick that up and read it if you wish. And of course, I wrote a chapter in a collaboration book recently. It's called The Book I Read, and it's a book that transformed my life. And I wrote chapter 15, and if you want to also read that, it's on my website. So feel free to go to any of those spaces and say hi to me. I'd love to know how you're doing, and if you want to talk, I'm always here. Yeah.
Fantastic. So fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. If this resonated with you, let us know. If a question came up because of our conversation, comment, and maybe we'll get back together and answer your question. If you know somebody who absolutely could benefit from this, please share it out. And as always, we love that you came to visit us. And this is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.